Little countdown. Did you see the countdown on your side?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. There's a little five, four,
But you
three.
can edit, all this out anyway, so it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter,
fuck it. They can listen. They can listen to us bullshit a little bit. What's been up, man?
Not a whole lot. Just got done training, so that was good.
What'd you
How's
guys
your
do?
training going?
I'm sorry.
I said, how's your training going?
Oh, good. Yeah, yeah. I just actually finished up what we had for the class today. We were doing a max effort lower
Mhm.
with the class. So we did some back squats and then hit the accessories up afterwards. It was in between classes, so I wanted to go ahead and knock it out real quick and show people really how to push accessories because they think
Hmm.
they are and they're not. Uh,
Hmm.
like a lot of times people get on there and or the thing that actually brought all this up today because I wasn't even planning on working out when I did.
Hmm.
One of the people came up to me and they were like, "Hey, my back squat just isn't going up." And I'm like, "Well, that's crazy because everybody else's is."
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, right.
but I was just like, "Hey, like I know it's hard to believe, but like these accessory movements that we do, that is the foundation to this thing, and they're not supposed to be comfortable, right?"
Hmm. Correct.
They were comfortable once upon a or they were uncomfortable once upon a time, and then you stayed at that same weight, or you stayed with those same bands, or you stayed with the whatever, and now you're feeling more comfortable. Those are never supposed to be comfortable, you know?
Yeah. It's funny because when my team went to the games, they got second at the games. None of the athletes that were on the team had ever been to the games, and either one or two of them, I think two, one or two of them had been to regionals. The rest of them had never been to regionals. Okay, one guy, it was his first year in CrossFit, so and then the first year like training competing, and I remember I took over the training, giving him strength work to do. Right, I gave him strength work, accessories. Here's what we're going to do with our before our WODs, and I remember because I didn't like run them through everything. I would take a look at their movement. If they needed coaching, I'd give it to them. But then like I wasn't getting paid or anything to do it, so it was one of those things where I watched their main movements and then I'd give them accessories to do, and I'd go train my personal training clients, right? And I'm watching the numbers, and the numbers are getting better, but just not at the rate of speed I know they can get better. And especially for those athletes, I knew that they could increase their strength really fast. And so I remember watching him one day, and it kind of blew my mind that if you look at CrossFit, right? What does CrossFit say? Results lie at the edge of intensity, right? So the more intense you are, the better the result you get, right? So these are CrossFitters who believe in CrossFit, and one of the main staples in CrossFit is to train with high intensity, right? And if you put them in a WOD, they were blood and guts, man. They went at it like I mean, like they gave you everything. Didn't have to question that. Not once. And then I'm watching them do accessories, and it looked like, someone's grandparents at a global gym just talking, going through the motion, and it blew my mind. And I think that all that really was is we get into habits, and like, they say, like how you, like, people will say, like, practice makes perfect, but it's perfect practice makes perfect, not practice makes perfect, right? So what happens is people get introduction to training, and a lot of times the introduction is like a global gym, and so they'll use machines and some equipment, and they don't really know what they're doing. And if you don't really know what you're doing, you're going to go and you're going to try hard, but the intensity is not going to be high. It's like if you take someone who's never kickboxed before and they're in their first kickboxing class, they're not going at someone like they're a world champion and they can't, and they have all the answers for anything, right? Because they're not known. And so sorry, can you hear the dog through that?
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Okay. Um, so, what ends up happening is they go to the gym, they don't really know what they're doing, they want to work out hard, but they don't go full blood and guts because they don't exactly know what they're doing. They don't know if their technique's right, they don't know what they're doing. Well, anyway, these athletes evolved. They got into other sports, and they got skill set training at a high level. They ended up coming into CrossFit, and then in CrossFit now they're training high intensity and they're learning the Olympic lifts and gymnastics. And once they learned them, they put intensity on them, and they hadn't done these accessory movements in a while. So then they come back to accessory movements, and it's like, oh yeah, I just finished off our reps. I just need four more sets into this. It just blew my mind that that wasn't how they lived in everything they did, right? And I think that's extremely common. Like you going and showing by example, this is how it's supposed to be done. It's funny how that little thing of just showing somebody, all of a sudden someone changes and then their numbers take off. Because that's what's great about the system that we use, right? We know the results are inevitable if you just execute them correctly. We already know it's going to happen. So if you're not getting a result, there's a mistake somewhere. Easy fix. We just have to hunt down the mistake. And a lot of times it's intensity, or they skip things, or their technique's not good on it. But I would think that that's why people do that. I think they just got caught up. Their first introduction was like these accessory movements, and they just revert back to the intensity they had when they started.
Yeah, I kind of jokingly have said several times I would rather do Fran 3 times in a row than a dynamic effort lower
Mm-hmm.
day, any day of the
Yep.
week, right? I
Correct.
go in and I am actually like when I do dynamic effort lower, I am actually nervous because I know
Mm-hmm.
how bad it's going to wreck me.
Yeah.
And that's just doing it right. That
Mm-hmm.
that's pushing every single element of it to absolute like well, I'm not gonna say to absolute failure, but like if it says 4 sets of 20, I'm probably not gonna be able to do 4 sets of 25 kind of
Correct.
scenario, right? And that's like figuring out where a lot of people just don't want to get uncomfortable in those areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Ever developing battle at my gym
Mm-hmm.
too. And you and I have these gyms all over the world who are following along with the programming. And that's another thing that, a lot of people are like, well, I just can't make them go hard. And I'm like, hey, put them on a time, put them on a clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Winner for getting these amount of movements done in this set time, you're the winner, right? You can log that in. You can make it a game however you need to. Make the accessory movements someday for time, make them someday for weight, and then hard cap them in a certain time domain. Like we do. The way we run it is we'll have 15 minutes for the main lift if we're doing like a max effort day, and then we sometimes follow that up with a metcon. Sometimes we follow that up with accessory movements. If we have the accessory movements, we still put them in 2 separate blocks of 5-minute windows because we want people to push really hard inside of those 5-minute windows, and some of those aren't going to be for time. The score, right? Or it'll be for load or something like that, or for total reps, whatever it is. But there's always some kind of gamification in there for people to kind of hit those things a little bit harder, to treat that like a metcon. But yeah, that's a forever ongoing battle there.
Yeah, but it's like that's kind of the way I look at people. Coaches out there need tools on how to deal with their athletes, their clients in front of them. And most people will get on board with what you want as long as they know the juice is worth a squeeze. There's a small percentage that don't want to work real hard, and that's why there's like Planet Fitness. And there are also in the world of CrossFit, right? There are CrossFit gyms that are social gyms that people go, they get a decent workout, and they have a good community to hang out with, go do activities with. And that's okay too. Just, I feel like when coaches are looking at a system, if you're trying to bring our system in, I would think you're trying to bring our system in to give the best output and result for the time and money you're putting into your training. You might need to look at what type of client do you want in your gym. I don't, it's funny because my gym's known for a lot of world records, for a lot of athletes being produced. 90+% of my clients are people who just want to get in shape. I don't turn anyone away who wants to work as hard as I need them to work. I don't care if it's somebody that no one will ever know and they'll never, uh, be world champion or world record holder. What I care about is I don't want to waste their time. I don't want them to waste my time. I want result. Result makes me happy. It should make them happy. If not, you don't really need me. You can save some money and go somewhere else and get a lesser workout. That's fine. But I think that a lot of coaches don't realize that we're the educators, right? That doesn't mean I teach you just how to squat. It also means I teach you what this can do for you in your life. I point out examples. When someone finding out, man, my car broke down and I had to change my tire and I was exhausted. I'm like, well, you've only been training for 2 weeks. If it was 6 months down the road, it wouldn't be a problem. Then that person like a year and a half, 2 years later, go to fly again. They're like, oh, dude, change my tire was nothing. I can't even believe I was tired and exhausted. Well, but they start to see the juices worth the squeeze, and it has to be. But sometimes that needs to be pointed out by the coaches, by the instructor too. Some people think they're going intense. Some people think they're going fast. I've always said that the number one cue I use for speed work sounds ignorant, but I literally just tell people go faster, and all of a sudden they go faster. It's a speed day. I wouldn't think I would need to say that. It's not, and I say that joking, but really what it is something goes quick, but they don't realize what my idea of fast is.
Right.
And they don't realize how fast they can actually be. So, when I was telling faster, then they get a snap out of it. Like, squeeze your glutes harder, faster. I want to hear a snap and get them going. Next thing you know, they're moving at a completely different velocity they ever have. Now they understand they can do it, no problem. They'll give that to me. They thought they were going fast. They just didn't know what was actually expected. It's hard to ask something to somebody when they have zero understanding of what expectations are for them.
For sure. And it kind of makes me think about like one reps too. For me
Mm-hmm.
personally, like unless I'm working with somebody of a really high caliber, I actually don't care what they get
Mm-hmm.
on their movement, right?
Yeah.
Squat, bench, deadlift, whatever. I'm looking for it at the top ends. What stopped them from going another five
Mm-hmm.
pounds, right? Were they slow off the floor? Could they not finish the lockout? Was there a little hitching pattern? Was there something weird that was going on in that movement? Because you can hide that really well at 50, 60, 70, even up to 80%. But once it starts getting a little bit beyond that, whatever kind of weird stuff people got going on is going to really start being highlighted there. And the benefit, especially, with CrossFit athletes, is like, yeah, we're probably not going to have a whole lot of events in the sport, unless Rogue, of course, we can talk about that too.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
but it's not a squat, bench, deadlift kind of scenario, right? So why
Mm-hmm.
do these movements? These movements have tremendous carryover and value in the sport because we're training in all different planes. We do a whole lot of pulling, we do a lot of overhead pressing, we do some pressing off the floor with the burpees, but we're not pressing the other way for some reason. It doesn't really make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even again, how strong do I want a CrossFitter's bench to be? Well, as strong as I can get it, and he can still perform all the other tasks. But more importantly, once they start getting to those upper limits, that's when I'm starting to look at why didn't they take the next 5 pounds, or what happened there that prevented them from taking the next
Mm-hmm.
5 pounds. I mean, to me, the numbers just really irrelevant. It's just a diagnostic tool to continue to
And
increase performance.
that shows why you're getting results. Because in all honesty, if you look at someone comes to my gym and someone says, "Hey, I want to be the best squatter in the world at my weight class," um, I usually hold them back for a long time. I mean, my first world record holder, I didn't have them go out to the world record until they were 100 pounds above it. So clearly they could have beat it before that. They did break that world record by over 100 pounds their first time out. So they could have beat it by 5 pounds before that.
Right.
And the reason why was pretty simple. I didn't care about one world record. I cared about a lot of them. I cared about retiring injury free. That athlete was number one in the world for I think 14 years, and they retired without any injuries, right? Mission accomplished. 43 world records and retired without getting hurt. What more do you want? So the reason why that's the case is because, we have to get repetition and perfection, right? And if we have imperfect motor patterns coming in, we start to create imperfect movement. So instead of taking someone to where they broke down, I take them to the highest number that they can hit mentally and physically without a breakdown. So if that athlete could have squatted 50 more pounds, but their knees might come in a little bit, or they might drop their chest, or maybe psychologically once in a while they'd miss, and that would affect them negatively psychologically, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hit the biggest number available without breakdown. And then, like you said, were they slow on the bottom? Was there a hiccup in the middle? Slow at the top? Was there a breakdown in pie position? If they're squatting, do they drop their chest? Do the knees come in? Do the knees shift forward? Do the butt roll under? I'm looking for that stuff because, obviously, like you said, we fix those things, we pick up more speed in those areas, and we don't have breakdown position. And then we can solidify perfect motor patterns because we have a body that's able to move perfectly. Because that's the biggest problem we have with technique is a lot of coaches don't understand. You can't cue out of somebody a big enough fault. If there's a fault that they can't physically attain the position or maintain the position you want for them to, you can cue it to your blue in the face. It's not going to change anything. It's going to only frustrate you and it's going to frustrate your client because you're just going to keep giving them words and those words mean nothing because they can't physically get there. So the way you're approaching it is actually perfect. That's what you want to do. And the problem too is I think that you can run closer to the ragged limit when you're in different systems. What I mean by that is this. Most systems produce strength at a very slow level. It takes a long time to get strong. We produce strength in a very short time period and we gain big numbers in short periods of time compared to others. Therefore, our nervous system risks not being able to keep up. So I just want a PR. I don't care if it's only 5 pounds, but how many weeks are there in a year? Add 5 pounds a week to a lift, right? So you're adding over 250 pounds a year to a lift. If you think 2 years and 500 pounds isn't enough for you, then I don't know what to tell you. You're never going to be happy in life. But the thing is, like, and nobody's doing that. I'm not saying you're going to, put 5 pounds a week on.
But
I'm
also,
simply
nobody's gonna be happy
saying
in life with their numbers. So,
that, right? So yeah, so someone who's like really, determined anyway is never going to be happy, right? Because they have to put them up higher and higher. But at the end of the day, the reality of it is we don't need athletes to miss weight. It screws them psychologically. We need them to have the nervous system peaked, and we need them to move perfectly. So when they can move perfectly and they're mentally strong enough to handle any situation in front of them as an athlete, then we can release the hounds, man. We can have some fun.
yeah, for sure. And that's when people, because I get on these calls with gym owners a lot, and they are like, well, hey, we don't have this and we don't have that. And at first, I was like trying to help them find workarounds, but the workaround really is you just go get the equipment or you don't do the thing. Like,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
tried to sugarcoat it and water it down so many different ways, over the years. But like, hey, when you invest in the chains and when you invest in bands and you got
Mm-hmm.
different specialty bars and different styles of bench presses and all these little things, and you're taking mats and making deficits and elevated platforms and things like that for um, your athletes continue to grow a heck of a lot
Mm-hmm.
faster, right? Like
Yeah.
you say this all the time. You have to introduce 15% more
Mm-hmm.
or more every year for both the coach and the athlete to grow. So when gyms, they get on this program, they think it's going to be like every other cookie cutter program, and then they have a hard time because they have to learn. And
Mm-hmm.
that blows my mind because you're asking your athletes to come in there and learn
Mm-hmm.
every single day, right? Learn, and people get like big egos about this too, where they want the
Yeah.
athlete to sit there and they have to listen to them. That athlete should want to listen to you, right? Not have to. This isn't like an authoritarian, like
Yeah.
militant thing. They're a paying
Mm-hmm.
customer and they can literally take their money anywhere
Mm-hmm.
to find a coach that's going to give them the results that they want. Um,
Yeah.
if you're asking your athletes to show up and to continue to push themselves inside and outside the gym, and you're not doing the same thing, I don't know. I think it's kind of hypocritical, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing the same, again, another quote that I steal from you is repetitive motion injuries aren't just for factory workers. If you're doing the same things over and over and over again, and you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
run our program, but you're not investing in the equipment, the bars, the boxes, the bands, the chains, then guess what? You're just going to do a whole bunch of squatting and deadlifting at the same exact area, and they're going to stagnate a heck of a lot faster.
100%.
If
You
there's a
know
ceiling
the
on that, just like you said,
Yeah.
five pounds every single week on your deadlift, yeah, that would be great. But at the end of the year, you and I'd be walking around with 700, 800 pound
Mm-hmm.
deadlifts, and next year we'd be pulling with Thor.
Yeah.
That's not
Right.
realistic.
Yeah. Correct. And here's the thing too. Like, this is the funny thing about it, right? Is the coach should be the best learner in the room. Like, if your job is to educate people, you should be able to learn at a faster, higher rate than anybody else in the room, or otherwise, eventually, you won't be able to educate the room. All
And
right.
value, yeah, that's it.
So, what I always tell coaches to do is I tell them your gym should be an educational facility. My first training job, I trained at a gym where the owner came up to me and he goes, "Man, you get the best results out of any trainer we have here, including me." He was a trainer at his own gym. He's like, "But you tell your clients everything you're doing and why." He's like, "My two suggestions to you are one, don't tell them so they need you because you'll make more money in the long run. Two," he goes, "your clients are never sore, but they get better workouts than my clients." He goes, "My clients are sore as all get out." He goes, "They don't know I'm pushing them beyond what they're supposed to." He goes, "They just think that I'm the best trainer because they're so sore with me and they're not as sore with someone like you." And he goes, "I understand why you're doing it because longevity, right?" But he's like, "They don't know that." Well, okay, well, I'm not going to lie to my clients. That's one. But the thing about it is, I educate my clients for two reasons. One, I actually care about my clients. If something happened to me, I hope if I brought fixes or improvements, because everybody comes to your gym for quality of life. One person wants to be in shape so their kid can see it. Another person wants to be a world record holder. Someone wants to be in better shape and have more confidence. We're on there for quality of life, all equal reasons for us to be on there. And so, therefore, it actually means something to me. If you come to my gym and you want to get something out of this, I want to educate you on it. So if something happens to me, you know what to do to fix yourself. The other thing is it forces me to evolve. If this is my job full time and you come in my job and I personal training 3 times a week, 3 hours a week, it would be absurd to think that they could catch me in knowledge. And if they did, man, I didn't do anything. I don't deserve my job.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, my first year as a coach, I learn something from another coach. I have to take it as fact, and I just do it. But I hear something from a coach 10 years down the road. Now I start thinking of 5, 6 different ways I can utilize it and other ways I can modify it for different situations. So you should, as a coach, if you're not learning at a faster and more information than you did the year before, every year of your career, you are failing yourself as a coach. And then in turn, you have to be failing your clients. And there's that saying that, Louis was always famous for, or, he's like, what doesn't, what works for you now will not always work for you. He'd always say that. And, that's totally true in athletes. Like you can't have a football team run the same play because they got a touchdown off at once. In the military, you're not dropping everybody off in the same exact spot because, like, hey, we landed one time, it was good. Like you have to change things, right? And so with an athlete, what works for you now will not always work for you. And just like what you said, you have to introduce 15% of more new exercise to an athlete, and a coach has to bring 15% more new influence into their coaching every year to learn at the highest rate of speed. So if you want to have a gym that's bare bones, you have to expect your clients will not stay as long. The number one thing I see at CrossFit gyms why people don't stay or why they leave is if they've been there for a year and a half, they didn't leave because they didn't like you. They left because they got bored. Because they liked you, they liked the location, they liked the equipment, they liked the people, they liked the coaches, and they ran out of new things. So if you introduce new movement, they will stay longer. I've done seminars, all 50 states, all kinds of different countries. And the one thing I notice is when I ask what the average length of time they retain clients, the ones that have the most variations available in class, their clients last longer. I would see normal gyms about a year and a half would be about the average for a lot of gyms, and I'd see people who train like kind of method like us, it's like 2.5 to 3 years. Like there's a big difference in that. And so you look at people get into racing cars, they start racing go-karts. They build a cart in their garage, they race on the weekends, they fix it themselves. If you want to be the best racer in the world, you're on a Formula One team. They invest billions. Go look at their equipment. They have the best engineers on the planet. They have the best, most high-tech equipment, the best materials. They only work with the best, period, underneath the most stressful, time-constraint situations there are. That's where it leads to. The less you have, the less you do, the less you are, and the less you produce. So you have to make up your mind. Do I like to produce mediocrity? Do I want mediocre results for my clients? We can't start. I didn't start my gym with every piece of equipment I always wanted. I still don't have every piece of equipment I wanted. So,
Well, that's
but
that's like PRs. It'll never be enough.
no, it'll never be enough. But you've been in my gym. I have enough equipment I can build a world champion in any sport. I have enough variation. It has to be to that. There are gyms that are nicer, that have more equipment than I do, more variety. But I got everything I need to get someone to be the best in the world in any sport. And that was my goal. Since I didn't have unlimited money, I picked a goal, and that was it.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, and another thing I think about too, when because we've had a few gyms jump on just for the excitement. Oh,
Hmm.
we're gonna do conjugate, and we talked about it, and they said, oh, we'll figure it out, and then they hop off, after a little while because
Hmm.
they don't want to make the investment in the equipment either.
Hmm.
And which is kind of astonishing because one, you're providing this educational value to your clients that they're not getting anywhere else, and then two, like you said, give them the knowledge, right? They
Hmm.
shouldn't have to come back, but they should want to come back because they're continuing to grow both physically and mentally every time they're in that facility. But another thing too, once you start investing in the equipment, it shows that you're actually investing in them too.
Hmm.
Right. You want, like you said, you want the very best outcome for your athlete. And a part of that is going to be going out and getting some different things and trying some different things out and seeing, can we get better results by doing it this way or with this bar or, whatever it is so that that athlete can truly reach their full potential. And that could
Hmm.
be, again, an athlete at the highest level, but I'll tell you who gets the most excited is my soccer moms. Uh,
Hmm.
at our gym, every time I get a new piece of equipment, we try to get something every single month, maybe a
Yeah.
couple things. We're just constantly introducing new things in, and they get so excited. It's like Christmas for them every time something new comes in. So,
Yeah. No, that's I mean that's exactly it. It allows you to grow. It allows people to work around injuries because the more variation you have, the more likely you are to work around an injury. But no, that's great. That's exactly what you want to do. And it's like I said, 90% of my people aren't competitive athletes. It doesn't change the fact that I want to get just as much of a percentage of improvement as I do over my top athletes. Right? Like the goal's the same no matter what. Um, and to not invest in your business, your people, yourself, it kind of is mind blowing to me. Um, you have to evolve, you have to change, you have to be relevant, you have to keep going. Your clients deserve more, you deserve more. I look at you're failing yourself. Like it's bad that you're failing your client, but man, you fail yourself. I just can't understand the thought process of allowing me to fail myself. You know, I can't help anybody if I'm failing myself. And so I need to evolve myself. That comes through equipment, that comes through educational pieces, that comes through buying programs. That if you're not there, um, and there's so many ways to do it, but you just got to keep doing it. And then not to want to, I understand like you have to make money to get equipment, but we all can, even sometimes little small things, can make a
right.
big difference. It doesn't have to be big expenses, um, but you have to invest to evolve. So you want to evolve your business, but you don't want to invest in equipment. It's going to be very hard to do. You're not going to do it. I mean, I mean, you know, look at the military. The more money is spent in groups, the more options they have available to them, and the more
Yeah.
successful they are, and the higher the education, right? The
Absolutely.
harder they are to kill. I mean, like,
Imagine that,
d-
right? And they heavily
yeah,
invest in fitness too.
yeah,
A crazy, crazy concept there.
yeah.
Awesome, man. What's new? Your way.
Not a ton, not a ton. I've been working on you know, working on making some improvements around the gym. Everything's always based on like how do you improve atmosphere? How do you keep atmosphere at the highest level? Atmosphere is massive. I don't have to tell you that. You come from a background where atmosphere is understood. You get what kind of people you're around, and then what's available to you. What can the outcomes be with what type of people you have around you, right? And that's the thing that you want to be a member of a gym where the coaches, owner is always investing in the education of themselves or equipment for the gym or the atmosphere. Because otherwise, if you're not constantly pushing forward, it's going to move backwards, actually. So if you have a good atmosphere in a gym, it'll eventually be negative and bad. Okay? Because there are more weak minded people than there are strong minded people. People create negativity. Negativity is like a cancer, it spreads. So therefore, if you're evolving, pushing forward all the time, no one has a chance to relax and get comfortable and open their mouth about something negative. When you have too many people cheering about their PRs or about some new movement, or now they have the mobility they needed in a joint that was bad and they clear a dysfunction or they get rid of an injury, all those things like that makes people happy. They talk about those things. That's the conversations you have to have in your gym at all times. Don't give an opportunity for negativity. That's why it cracks me up when some CrossFit coaches are like, like this is a lot to do, man. Like your guys' programming, like, yeah, I can get it done in an hour, man, but like I got to be on point. Well, shouldn't you be
Yeah,
anything
no
else but
shit.
that? You're supposed to be on point. Yeah, that's
Well,
your
yeah,
job.
that was always my
Mm-hmm.
argument is like, well, what the fuck were you guys doing before?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you have somebody who's paying for a premium service at a premium rate, and you're not delivering a fucking premium product. Instead, it turns into
Mm-hmm.
open mic night with fucking Shane and Justin, which is absolutely mind blowing. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't fucking possibly fathom paying $200 a month or
Mm-hmm.
whatever to go to class for someone to stand up there and like crack jokes and not teach me anything.
Yeah.
Get the
Think
fuck
about
out of my
this. People want to talk about they're like, oh, like I don't know if I can do this or I have to buy more equipment. Okay, well you have two options here. You have two best friends that live on the opposite side of town. And one of them goes to one across, like, I need to do something to work out. So one joins a CrossFit gym. The other one, a couple days later, joins one by them. And then 3 months later, they get together and let's say they both know exactly what each other are normally built like. They've been great friends for a long time. They get together for lunch and both of them improved, but one's improved substantially more than the other one. And the other one says, the one who's not built as good, looks at the other person and goes, so what do you guys do in class? And they start talking, well, I do these maxes on here, and then I have some accessories some days, and I have these conditioning workouts. I do speed work so I can bring up how much faster I move and work on technique. And they lay out this whole conjugate system. And then their friend goes, I must have joined a bad gym. We do like 1/4, 1/5 of that. Like I literally, sometimes I go for an hour and I get a 10, 12 minute, 15-minute workout in. Sometimes I get 20, 25. And then don't get me wrong, I understand those 10, 15-minute workouts are hard, right? But we do have the opportunity to get a lot more out of our athletes. And I can tell you right now, that friend who's not getting as good a results as her friend is not going to sit around and watch her friend get more results a lot better. She's going to end up driving over to that other gym and eventually, leave this gym. So if you want a gym that makes money, if you want a gym that's healthy, if you want to enjoy your job, because deep down if you're putting a half effort in or not as a coach or as an owner, right? Just dot your I's and cross your T's, man. That's how you win. That's how you get these results. And if it's not easy for you, make it easy for you. Get so good at it is easy for you as a coach, and then you'll realize that just distances you from all the other coaches in the area because it would be hard for them.
And it's funny because you just described an exact scenario that plays out at least once a month in my
Mm-hmm.
town. We're in a military town, so it's high turnover rate out here. We can, gain and lose 20 members a month.
Mm-hmm.
And that's every single month. It's just the way the move cycle works. So when people come in, sometimes they know our reputation and they're like, yep, that's where I want to go. And, because I know they're going to help me achieve whatever we're looking
Mm-hmm.
for, right? And then there's other people who don't know anything and they just look at price tag. And we're obviously not the cheapest option in
Mm-hmm.
town, to say the least. So people are just like, well, this CrossFit gym or this gym that looks and acts and smells a lot like CrossFit is a heck of a lot
Mm-hmm.
cheaper. I think I'm going to go over there.
Mm-hmm.
And that same thing happens where, because it's just everybody comes back
Small
here.
community.
Yeah, so then they see their friends, and their friends
Mm-hmm.
will say like, "Hey, I've been going over here," and they're like, "Well, shit, you've obviously been getting better results," and they
Mm-hmm.
try to switch over.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have space, we'll take them, as long as they don't bring any drama or bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Because above the equipment that we have that a lot of other gyms don't, as well as the knowledge that comes behind the ability to use that equipment. One thing that we're very protective about that you kind of already talked about was atmosphere. We want to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that our culture above everything else. We throw around the buzzword community,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of different places you can find community. You can go to your local bar on a Friday
Mm-hmm.
night and find a bunch of people wearing the same jersey, having some fucking community.
Mm-hmm.
But the culture of the gym is what's the most important, and that's
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, when somebody's barely struggling to get that rep and then they go to add more weight on, not just the coach, but the other members come up and they're like, no, no fucking misses. Like, don't do that. Like, we have a saying, hey, we're gonna build, like, when we're lifting heavy, we're gonna build to a heavy today. And then right on the bottom of it in big letters says no misses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's trying to ingrain that into people because they're so used to pushing to failure that they learn and get really good at failing, right?
Well, it's like, oh, bad. Sorry.
And that's a battle that we have because we are a military town and we have people who are coming, CrossFit's nothing new. The way that you and I do it is uniquely, I believe, more like what it looked like in the early days with like high quality coaching and things of that
Yeah.
nature. But people are coming from, Baraboo, Wisconsin, or fill in the blank, some random town, and they were paying $50 or $100 a month for their CrossFit membership, and then they come here and they're like, "There's no way," having no idea what kind of value that they're actually getting inside
Yeah.
of those four
You know,
walls.
you have that old saying that's like how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So therefore, like, it's so funny that so many people are into CrossFit, but they don't listen to a lot of things that CrossFit said, or like some people want to try the conjugate system, don't listen to things like Louis would say, or we would talk about in the conjugate system. And, CrossFit does talk about community, and people go, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And there are some people who do listen to that and some who don't. And then, CrossFit says, results lie at the edge of intensity. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then until it's time to get intense. Intensity doesn't mean like, oh, I like the WODs to go intense. Ooh, 1 minute max, like that's hard. Or speed work, well, hey, that's intensity across the board. speed work, max work, accessory movements, metcons, it doesn't matter. That intensity is designed for every single stimulus you're intending to do. And then when we say we don't want to miss weight, right? There's that old saying that I always like: if you don't have time to, if you aren't going to do it right the first time, you better have time to do it twice. So that person, if you want to choose the cheaper gym, and I'm going to say cheaper gym generically, let's say the cheaper gym has less equipment, has less of a community and knowledge. If you don't get the results you want, you get to spend whatever money and time you went and wasted over there, and then go find a gym and hopefully it accepts you and has the opening for you that does get the results you need. You just delayed yourself gratification and result in life because of that. That's ignorant. Don't do it twice. Find the most highly qualified people with the best program and learn from them. And that's why I say do what you do best, delegate the rest. Look, man, if you're a coach, I'm a different coach than I was when I was in my 20s, than I was in my 30s, than I was when I turned 40, right? And the thing about it is we all evolve. At some point, if you're a good leader, you also know when to follow. So when I went to Westside Barbell, when I first went to Westside, I had really bad tendonitis in my elbow. So I'm benching one day, and Louis comes up, grabs the back of my arm. He's like, "Oh, you got bad tendonitis." I go, "Yeah," because I just had to peel my fingers off the bars. It hurt so bad every rep. And it caused me to come down with the bar really slow because everything felt like it was ripping off. And so Louis goes, "Okay, well, I want you to do 3 or 4 sets of 100 tricep extensions, some kind of variation bands, change the variation every time." And he said, "I want you to do that like 3 times, 4 times a day." You have to understand, one rep hurt my elbows really bad. One rep killed them. So look at how many reps I'm supposed to do in discomfort. So he walks away, and my first thought in my head was, this man is nuts. And right after that, my thought was, but you're here. You're here because you didn't have the answers. You're here because you want to achieve something that you want to achieve other things that other people can't. You want to learn things that other people don't know about, and you want to evolve as high level as you can. This guy's getting the results. Who's the student to question the master? Sounds ignorant to me, but now, if I was in the same shoes and I saw someone like that, I give the same information, and they're going to look at me like I'm nuts. And I've heard many athletes tell me I'm nuts. I've told them numbers like, in a year I have you do this. You're crazy. I've heard it over and over again. I'm like, well, I must not be crazy because the results keep happening over and over. And what I say either happens or exceeds what I said was going to happen in that time period. But I knew that I needed to follow because I had someone with more information in front of me. I decided to try to take 15 years or 20 years of my life and try to learn what Lou did in 70 years from him so I could evolve it later. I didn't think I was better than him. I wanted to learn from him. Okay? And this is a thought process that needs to happen, and a lot of people don't have. He cleared my tendonitis in 7 weeks. Doctors told me it'd take a year to year and a half before my tendonitis cleared because it was so bad. I've never had tendonitis again in my elbows, and that's probably been 20 plus years. Okay, so I was the crazy one for thinking he was crazy at first. Definition of insanity: do the same thing over and over again, expect a different result. Well, I changed that result because I changed the stimulus because I was told to by someone with a lot more knowledge and experience than I had.
You know, that story sounded very familiar because when I got tendonitis in my elbow really bad, I shot you a text and then you basically spelt out that whole protocol, and I was like, he's fucking crazy. I can't extend my arm
Mm-hmm.
one time. And I was like, all right, well, you know what? Maybe he does know something. And so I went through it, and it was almost to the point of tears, right? Every time you would do this, and then after a while, it stopped hurting. And then I'm like, well, I guess I'm better. And I didn't follow through with the protocol, and so I started backing off, and it started coming up again, and I was like, ah, fuck, he was right. So I went ahead and finished the whole thing, and then afterwards, yeah, I haven't had any issues since, and it's probably been a
Mm-hmm.
couple years. What's funny though is, even, with those accessory movements, like the banded push downs and those kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
people they don't even push the bands, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we'll start them off maybe one red band in each hand, or like a micro mini or something like that, or a mini band, and then we progress them to one in each hand, and then we'll go a little thicker or something like that, and then we start adding volume to it,
Mm-hmm.
volume reps going from 100 because they can do 100 now in 3 sets or less, and then we're progressing them up to, maybe like, hey, you're going to do 150 this time, and I know everybody else is doing 100, you're going to do
Mm-hmm.
150. that little bit of specialization definitely helps out as well, and it gives a lot of credibility to the coach because they can look at somebody and be like, "Hey, you're not doing that because that's not giving you the same result it was before. We're going to make sure
Hmm.
that you get the better result for
Yeah.
your workout." That's
Like I
that's coach,
said,
that's coaching,
what
you know.
works now, what works now for you will not always work for you. So if your coach is not learning, if they're not educating themselves, or not following an optimal system, um, you're gonna run into a wall. And somebody like, oh, I got results like first 6 months, like no, I got good results. Can you get them 30 years later?
Well, and that's what I
You know,
challenge
like
the coaches with, even at our facility is like, hey, the programming's already done, the lesson plan's
mhm,
already done. What I challenge you to do is look at this workout, the way that it's constructed, look at these accessory movements, and what are we trying to fix that's going to inevitably break down in this workout?
mhm,
Because if we're doing something like, hey, we're going to do a Metcon, and then we're going to follow that up with some accessories, we call them successories, and then we're going to follow that up maybe with like a little finisher or something.
mhm,
Why were those movements chosen? They weren't just thrown in there
mhm,
randomly. You
mhm,
can ask every single athlete after the workout what's blown up on them, and then we're going to go blow it up a step further so that next time they do it,
mhm,
it's a heck of a lot easier, right?
mhm,
And the the cool thing that we've been seeing is a lot of masters athletes are getting on this, and they're getting
mhm,
results like they haven't seen since they were younger. So, in the CrossFit space, the masters category starts at, 35 years of age and then
mhm,
goes 35, 39, I think 40, 44, and then continues to move up in similar increments. And these are guys who have been doing CrossFit for 20 plus years, probably had a lifetime of fitness, and they're starting to see some pretty significant results. They're PRing things they thought they would never in their 40s, some of them even in their 50s, right? And they're PRing their back squat, and this is lifetime PRs, and that
mhm.
doesn't like it doesn't make sense, right? From a conventional standpoint, but we
From a
gotta,
yes,
oh, good.
from a conventional standpoint, it does not make sense. It makes sense to me, that, but does not make sense. Yeah, because what's interesting is like it's funny because when I first got involved with CrossFit, like one of the first things I said, I'm like, people they literally were not doing accessory movements, they weren't doing like a conjugate system, and I said in the near future, not far away, every games competitor will be doing accessory movements. Period. And I literally, some people would laugh at what I had to say. No, you can't find any who doesn't. And when we talk about the
Well, and
conjugate
the
system,
aesthetics look completely different too,
I do.
and their
Yeah.
ability to do things, right? You look at the early
Yeah.
days, everybody was kind of skinny and yeah, they had abs or whatever, but they didn't look very
Correct.
athletic. Like for a professional athlete, that's not what you thought a professional athlete would look. And
Hmm.
then over time,
I,
more and more
I,
people start hitting these things and the aesthetics
yeah.
followed, form followed function there.
Yeah. I've had a couple games competitors. There was like top 10 people come into my gym at different points in my CrossFit gym, and walked in and came in on a normal class. I'm like, whoa, your competitors are jacked. Like, this is my class. Competitors will be training later. And it blew their mind. Like they look like serious competitors. You're right, they do look different, and that also when people don't want to spend money and put more effort into the training for their athletes, it's like, look, my athletes advertise themselves. They advertise the gym for me when they're walking around because people will notice because they are built different and their output is different. But you have to understand. People need to understand this. I want you guys to understand, like, just because you do accessory movements doesn't mean you're doing the conjugate system. Okay, what you have to understand is that we do things for we have. Let me break down a couple things we do for a reason. One, we hit a one rep max majority of the time. This allows us to adapt to the high stress placed upon us physically and psychologically. Remember, results at the edge of intensity. Highest form of intensity is a one rep max. Okay, so when you're doing multiples, threes to fives, you break position. Perfect example. Someone squatting for 5 reps, their fifth rep does not look like their first one. I would tell you even their second rep doesn't look like their first one. In my mind, you can do one perfect. I'll give you two. That means you're doing three imperfect. That means you're doing more imperfect reps than perfect reps. So you're solidifying improper motor patterns. You're allowing your knees to come in, allow your chest to drop, which means that you're going to create hip mobility issues that leads to knee and low back problems. So we do one rep max, so we don't get too much volume underneath a really heavy load like that, to where we break down position. Then we do speed work. This allows us to produce force at a faster rate of speed, means we can lift more weight, we can move faster, which are all great things for athleticism. We can work on perfecting technique underneath a submaximal load, a load not heavy enough to break our position down. So we get all these repetitions in per week, which is twice the volume roughly than our max days. So we get a lot of volume in perfect position. And then our accessories aren't just thrown out in the wind. They are designed to get you to move perfectly. If I get you to move perfectly, that's the least amount of wear and tear on your body possible, meaning you last longer. It also means the most efficient, which means you move the most weight or cover distance in the fastest amount of time because it's the least amount of wear. But the reason why these older competitors, these master competitors, are doing so well is because we're, one, making sure with our accessory movements they're extremely well rounded. It means that they move better, that will allow them to last longer. It allows their performance to go up. The nice thing about Masters competitors is they usually have a good head on their shoulders. They've been competing for a long time. They're not going to get rattled easy. You just need to give them the right program. The rest of it's there, right? But the conjugate system is train speeds that you need to get better. I don't want you to just think like, hey, you look at ours and we're doing speed strength, and that's cool because that's going to really be what you need for 99% of the stuff that happens in CrossFit or powerlifting or Olympic lifting. But if you have somebody who has a hole in the game and they have a speed that's not available to them, and there's certain WOD times that they just never compete well in, I can also program those speeds and get them really good at that. They don't have to have a glaring weakness in time domains, in repetition schemes, or any kind of movement pattern. We can clear all of that. And I think that's the nice thing for me is I don't know why people don't want this variation anyway, because as coaches, I mean, it's always do because it's always a lot more fun. Just like, you got to think like this like CrossFit, right? I remember the first time I did Fran, I'm like, really? Like, this is nothing. This is a workout. But I went through with intensity and I found out, oh, this is a workout. Like, I got it. I get it. Totally get it. I didn't know that at the time. So I can give you accessories you don't think much of, and then you get into it and like, oh my God, if you knew ahead of time, you'd been stressed, maybe not showed up that day, like screw this. But we vary stuff so much, it doesn't come around that often. But everything's that hard. I mean, like everything's difficult because you're supposed to put full intensity into it. But it allows people to not kind of get scared of the workouts that are coming up. It allows them to get full effort into it. And so for you as a coach, if you don't want to evolve, man, I just don't get it because you have people at all different age ranges. They have all different issues. And the system is the only system in the world that I found has an answer for everything. Is it the hardest system to learn? Probably, because it has more variation. But once you learn it, it's the easiest one to diagnose, dissect, and figure out any problem an athlete needs to make them better. So why wouldn't you invest your time in learning it if you're a strength coach? Can you imagine, like, you have a bright daughter, your daughter's smart, well, you're saying smart too, your kids are smart kids. Can you imagine if someone came up and said, hey, your son or daughter, like, well, look, you know, we were teaching a kid low-level geometry. We're teaching them in a manner that anybody can understand, but they're like really good at math. So like next year, we thought we were going to actually try to push them a little bit. I would be like, why weren't you pushing them from day one?
Yeah.
I want my kid to learn the highest level math they are capable of learning, and I want them to be able to learn it in the most digestible form possible, coming around as quick as possible, and I want them to be able to do it fast. So if there's a slow way that's easy, that's not what I want. I want the optimal way. I couldn't imagine someone telling me they're holding my kid back. Why would you hold yourself back then?
Right.
I
Yeah,
don't get it.
and something that you did said just got me thinking about something that I like to do personally when I'm working with higher level athletes is they go through the workout and then
Mhm.
afterwards we have a conversation like, hey, what blew up on you during
Mhm.
this workout? Or what stopped you from getting another round? What stopped you from going faster here? What stopped you from going heavier here? And with a higher level athlete, you can kind of have that conversation and you can lead them to things
Mhm.
and it gets more buy-in, right? So I'll be like, for instance, if you and I are working together and you're like, man, I just couldn't keep my elbows up in the front squat while I was breathing. Okay, I got something for you. We're going to do some arched
Mhm.
around backs. We're going to fry your spinal erectors right now and make
Mhm.
sure that you are able to hold that position. Might even go and put you on a Sorensen hold face down or something like that, or have you do
Mhm.
some hip extensions, just trying to lock down that
Mhm.
position and really own it. But if you're not having those conversations with the athletes and you're not helping them come to some of those conclusions as well, then you're kind of wasting their time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of buy-in when an athlete will come to me and they say after, even the soccer moms, they'll come and say, "Hey, this workout was really challenging. I felt like it was just all my quads." Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, do you remember this exercise we did a couple weeks ago? You're going to see it again as an accessory movement. I want you to go
Mm-hmm.
heavier, or I want you to
Mm-hmm.
go faster, or I want you to push more reps, or something like that. I've given them a fix right away, and they have something to look forward to as well.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you also said is like athletes being our best advertisement. Um, when some of these higher level athletes come into our gym, I get the same thing. It's like, is this a competitor's class? And I'm like, no, dude, there's 5 people over here with strollers, you know.
Yeah, right. Right.
They're just, and they're like, well, why are these women looking all jacked, or why are they lifting so heavy or whatever? Because they get to see a lot of other gyms that they travel
Mm-hmm.
around and commute in, and they don't see that, so they automatically assume that that's a competitor level class when it's just moms not really realizing how strong they actually are
Mm-hmm.
comparatively to not only the rest of the sedentary population, but the people who do this thing every day somewhere else, you know?
I can admit there's one negative to this type of training, and that negative to this type of training is that for a coach is that you have to pay attention to your clients. So if you don't want to pay attention to your clients, you're lazy and you don't care about result, that's fine. You can do whatever you want. If you actually care about your client, this system forces you to pay attention. And how does it do that? It does it pretty simple because how do I dissect an athlete? One, I look at can they attain the position I want first. So can they do an air squat? Great. So now I know they have perfect mobility for the type of technique I want in the squat. One movement. I don't count that for all movements. That's for that movement. Then let's say I load 135 in their back, their knees cave in, their chest drops. They stand up with the lift easy, but they just break position. Well, now I know they're not strong enough to maintain position. So what broke down? Whatever broke down, that's where we get our accessories in. Our accessories fix the movement pattern faults. They fortify the areas that don't allow perfect technique. Now, let's say that's a very low level athlete, the one that can stand up with a weight real easy, but they're way out of position. That's someone who's not strong yet. Someone who's very strong can barely get out of position, they're going to miss a lift. So, what causes them to barely get out of position? Is there a mobility issue? Is there a strength issue? Again, we have to decipher that. Then the other thing is, let's say they move perfectly. Okay, where are you losing speed at? In a squat, are you slow out of the hole? Are you slow in the middle? Are you slow at the top? This tells us what muscle groups are weak and where they need to put their volume in, and then we can start eliminating the weak positions. A while ago, like Louis, people talk about Louis Simmons, and Louis was a very nice guy, a very good guy. But when you were in the gym, he never talked about anything good because there was nothing good to talk about. There was always something to fix. You're not a robot. You're a human being, so there's always something to fix. And when I asked one time, someone asked him, like, man, did you ever say anything nice? He goes, why would I? He's like, nice is me telling you what's wrong to fix it because you want to be better. He's like, is it nice of me to lie to you and tell you something nice about something to do or come up with like one nice thing, but we have 5 things we need to fix? No, like we got to get on the next thing. Hey, time constraints here. We got to go, man. It takes time to fix these issues. And if you want to move phenomena, it's a life's work, right? And so, you know, people when I hear someone say, "Ah, man, but that's equipment's expensive, or that's a lot to invest, or that's a lot of time, or man, I don't know, like I have to have time to read another book." It's like you're going to have a lot of time to read a book when you lose your job. Okay? So figure out the time, invest in it. You chose the job. Job did not choose you. So therefore, shouldn't I have some interest in what I'm doing for a career? Like I love to train people for sport. I love to learn anything new that I can. I like to read new things. I like to, toss about different ideas and see what I can come up with for improvement. That's the fun part for me. I don't want to be bored. I want, Groundhog Day, come in and do the same thing over and over again. You know.
Well, and there's so much to learn through this process too, and I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but just really understanding what the movement does.
Hmm.
Like, why did somebody decide from whether it's a sweat shrug or, if we're doing a JM press or something, why are we even doing this to begin with? Like, you should be
Hmm.
asking those questions as a coach, because then you can actually diagnose what might be an issue that's holding that athlete back, and you can give them an exercise or a focus on an exercise for that day Something I do as well is like, let's say we have a superset. I'll give an example of today's, right? We had the Bulgarian splits. We supersetted those with some band arched around backs, and that went right after we did our heavy back squat. For me, if I'm noticing that somebody's having a hard time trying to finish that lift or maybe even come out of the bottom, I'd probably start them with the Bulgarian split squats, right? But if I notice that somebody lost position a little bit on their chest, their torso started to drop forward, maybe their shoulders rounded, guess what I'm going to hit them with first?
Mhm.
Some really thick band arched around back good mornings, and I'm going to make them fight that position and probably hold that arch into that static for
Mhm.
maybe like a minute or something so that they can really begin to train those upper spinal erectors to contribute. That also might lead us into what a different proper warm-up protocol is.
Mhm.
If Shane drops his chest every time, guess what, Shane? Before class, before we even start warming up together, you're going to go over here and you're going to knock out 50 of these or
Mhm.
something just to get your spinal erectors awake because maybe you sit at a desk all day and jamming spreadsheets. That would be my actual hell.
Mhm.
Uh, I'd say another negative result of this program is people, they tend to get addicted to the results. It's a good to
Yeah.
bad thing, right? Just like today, somebody got really upset that they didn't get a PR on their back squat.
Mhm.
You PR'd three things last week. You PR'd three things the week before that. You PR'd all these things, but you're within 95% of your lifetime best, and you're mad about that? Like,
There was actually something really funny about that because it's funny. I can if you go talk to coaches about the problems they have with clients, you can understand what kind of coach they are. Most coaches aren't complaining about their athletes hitting PRs all the time and once in a while not getting one being blown up ticked. That same athlete probably trained in another gym for years before they came to your gym and didn't complain once when they didn't make progress for a year and a half or 2 years. But the problem is now they come to your gym and say they hit a PR every week for a year and all of a sudden one day they miss and now they're ticked. Why weren't you ticked when you didn't make progress for 2 years when you were with a different coach? Because you didn't expect to. You might not realize it, but subconsciously you didn't expect to hit a PR, but now you do. You know what's great about that? Most coaches will never realize that because most coaches will never get the kind of results that will elicit that type of response out of a client. So the nice thing is that just means you finally are very successful at getting results, and your client knows it. They expect it, right? Which means the juice is worth the squeeze for them because what Justin's not telling you is this is how it works. Westside and my gym, we had roughly 94% success rate in PRs. What that means is your PR, that's every lift. So if we hit a max and we hit, say, 3 or 4 accessories and we do, or three
oh, so
accessories
we're
or
supposed
so,
to try to PR the accessories too, Shane?
yeah, right?
Shit.
Yeah. And then ab
Right?
movements too. So if you're trying midline or obliques abs, you better PR. We're trying to PR everything we do. Our finishers, we try to PR. The first time I do a weight for 100, if I'm doing 100, I'll increase the weight or increase the tension
Fuck yeah.
or I increase the reps. I never look back. I never want to do the same thing twice. Why would you want to do the same thing twice? You
Because it's
know,
comfortable. It was hard the first time, and now the second time you've adapted, so we're gonna
it's like
stick.
you see someone rock climb, do they choose the same route and same mountain every single time they climb? No, they want new experiences. They want new challenges, right? So we never look back. 94% of the time we hit a PR. That means if this person missed a PR and say a squat, that means they PR'd every accessory movement they did after that. So the other 6, 7 movements they did after that, or 5, 6 movements, they're hitting PRs on that, right? And then that means like you can go up and tell them, go, look, you missed a PR in your squat today. Your glute hammers, you did more reps. You did, more reps on all the accessory or an accessory movement, which means you're stronger. You just need just a little more for it to translate to that extra, pound or two that you needed left to get that PR. So it's still a roadmap. Even though they didn't PR on the menu, they PR on everything else. But also, if you went a year and a half in a gym and not hitting a PR, which is very common, if you miss a PR the next week, you don't question it. If you hit a PR every week for a year, year and a half, and you miss one, the first thing you do is break your neck, turn to look at your coach and go, why'd I miss? And it's either a technique breakdown, maybe maybe it was something where I have to ask you questions. You know, How's your relationship going? How's money going? How's work going? What I'm getting at is, how is stress in your life going? Is there an abnormal amount of stress for you? Did you eat the way you normally eat? Has your eating been thrown off? Did you sleep the way you normally? Or if you thought you slept as well, ask your partner if you're married. Was I sleeping good the past couple of weeks? And they're like, no, I've actually been snoring a ton. I've been meaning to say something to you about that because you normally don't snore. Maybe you're not sleeping as well either. It elicits questions and responses because inherently, since we have an answer for everything, your results are structured, which means since it's structured, I have an answer because I know if this happens, this is the fix. If this happens, that is the fix. And this is where coaches, I think, get intimidated by trying to teach this method because they try to wrap their brain around learning what all the stuff they need to and getting the equipment and learning about that equipment wrapped around a structureless system that would make it very difficult for them to learn when to implement what things. You don't have to worry about that. Like, we structure everything we do. It has a structure to it, so we have an answer. It actually becomes very simple. You just have to learn the structure and the whys, okay? Which everybody should want to, and something they chose to do as a career. They should want to know the whys. They should want to learn more. And it's like little simple things like Justin said. Hey, this person, they drop their chest, so put them on arch around back, right? Here's the great thing about that exercise, and he was talking about an isometric hold at the top. Here's one thing I actually really like. When you're doing that exercise, people feel it in two different places. Some people feel it and their spinal erectors blown up. Some people feel their abs blow up. Well, either way, you just found out what is weak on them and caused them to drop their chest. If their abs are burning, their midline was weak, or their abs were weak. If their spinal erectors are burning, more spinal erector work. But that's the great thing about that exercise is it tells us the truth. So why detect your test? I don't have to. Sometimes people try to tell you the truth, and they give you an opinion, but it doesn't mean the opinion's right. I don't need to listen to anybody. I just need to watch, and I have a structured system that makes me pick the next thing to do, and we're going to find the problem, and we're going to fix it. But think about that. 94% success rate of every movement you ever do in the gym. Ever. Okay? I knew I was in the right system, and I tell a story about this was really cool because I love to lift, right? If you really love to train, you love to push yourself. Is that anybody system besides this one? Because I've trained, trust me, I've tried everything you can imagine out there because I use myself as a guinea pig because I wanted to learn and I wanted to do what was best. So this is the only system, and I learned this one day. I was at the gas station on the way to training, and this guy pulls up and he's pumping gas, and he's like, and I used to be more muscular back then, and he's like, well, how much you bench? Which is like, obviously a really common question people get. One,
Not
I
how
don't
much
get
you
anymore.
clean, not how fast your 400
Right?
is, how much do you
It's not
fucking
it affects me
bench?
anymore, but I used
The
to.
international sign of do you even lift?
Yep. And so the funny thing is, the first thing that popped in my head is like, I'm on the way to train the bench today. I'm like, God, man, I wish I would have got gas afterwards. Someone asked me that, like, I'd have a bigger number. And that thought, like, I can't remember what I said to him, like, but anyway, I got in the car and drove away, and I'm like, I'm in the right system. The fact that I know and almost in my head guarantee that I'm going to do more weight today, like, I'm a done deal. I'm not even worried about it. The only question I have is like, how much am I going to be on PR by? That's the only thing I don't know. Do I know I'm going to hit a PR? Yes, I'm going to hit a PR. If I don't, it's great because it's like it just told me, hey, man, you got to put yourself in check. There's something you're not doing. You either are not managing your stress correctly, you're not eating or sleeping correctly. There is something you're doing because the system takes care of it with the structure for you. Make sure you don't chase your tail and run around. But I'm telling you right there, that's when I knew. Because most systems, you don't progress so often that you think like that.
Yeah, and another thing you said about like life stressors, like trying to figure out what's actually going on with the athlete. If you know something's up prior to going into that and it's not going to be a great day, we like to just change it up because, we got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of military folks and some people are coming back from being in the field for a couple weeks or coming back off rotation. And it's going to be like, we'll just use today for an example, 1 rep back squat, and then we're going to push accessories afterwards. If I know that person's not anywhere near it and psychologically
Mm-hmm.
like it's a struggle for them to come in, I'm gonna change it up completely. I might put them on a giant cambered bar. I might have them do Andersons, off the pen, something like that, just to
Mm.
completely change it up, something that they have no frame of reference with, and that they can still have a lot of fun. They can still get some variety in. They can get a good heavy stimulus for the day, because that giant cambered bar, like it's nowhere close to your regular back squat.
Mm.
If that thing's swinging and that person's going to strain really hard, and then
Mm.
they're going to be like, "Hey, was that a good lift?" "Yeah, it was a great
Yeah.
lift." "Well, what's the numbers?" I always ask Shane. I always go back to him and I'm like, "Hey, this is what I hit. Was that good?" And he was like, "Yeah, it was all right." His frame of reference is a little skewed, but um, I just tell him, "Yeah, it was pretty good. Now you have a number next time you do it, and you can have something to chase, and they get really
Yeah.
excited."
It's you can only hold yourself to the highest standard. So to me, it's like good. Like, man, that was great. That's the highest I've ever heard of in the world in history. If you did good, it's like, yeah, that's cool. That's elite. That's good. You're elite. You're pro. Like, that's good because that is good. But great is something I've never heard of. You know. But here's the nice thing about the system. When I say it's structured, right? It's structured in many ways that people don't think about. Sometimes I've had people like do programming and they like they're giving it to other people and like as a coach and they stop because they didn't spend enough time in this yet. And like, well, I need to do this. It's like, no, you are working that. No, 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 I need like direct work on this. No, no, no. Like you're doing this to fix the problems to be able to do that. Instead, you're just going to push them on that one thing over and over again until they get so frustrated that it's not even available to them anymore because mentally it just destroyed them that they don't even want to get near it. And so with the structures, that we're talking about also comes into I want someone to PR every week and I don't want them to ever miss a weight. Well, this leads to quite a few things. One, I'm not going to kick someone while they're down. And that's exactly what Justin was talking about. I take someone and let's say their favorite lift is safety squat bar, 25% chain. That's where like they take it to everybody in the gym on that, right? But you take someone who's in the military who's been out for a while, or someone who just, whatever reason, like maybe they had a baby and they haven't been in the gym for as much, they're not sleeping as much, and they come in and it's like their first day kind of back in. I'm not giving them the movement they love the most. It's guaranteed they're going to be disappointed. Because even though you should be able to rationalize why it's not a PR, it doesn't change the fact that driven people will still get upset that they went backwards on something because they're driven to go forward. So, take someone, put them on an 8-inch box, and have them do a camber bar box squat, a depth they've never gone to, a bar that they very rarely use, and all my sudden they're like, oh my God, like he said, was that any good? They have to ask because they don't know. Well, if that was all that was available in them today, that was perfect. Every time it's perfect if that's everything they got without missing a weight. And then what I do is, let's say they train really good for the next 8 weeks, and after that, on the ninth week, now we're going to go that safety, or we're going to come back to that bar, that 8-inch box with a cambered bar, and they're gonna beat by 100, 150 pounds, maybe 200 pounds, because one, they've been working out for eight weeks after that, but two, it was an off day. So that day was still probably 50, 60 pounds off what they normally are, since they weren't training much for a while, and they used to train, they came back 8 weeks later, between the 8 weeks and the 40, 50 pounds in the tank, they're probably going to smoke that thing by 100 pounds. They're going to feel awesome. Now, like, man, I feel back, I feel good. Yeah. Now I took the psychological stress off you. Now I got you excited. Now your nervous system is going to react differently. Now we're going to go. Right? So my job is to get the most out of somebody, not give them the exercise they want. Okay? And we have a structure for that because we want people to hit PRs all the time. So I'm going to make adjustments when I need to. I'm going to keep them in a psychological state that keeps them progressing. I'm going to keep them in a physical state that keeps them progressing. But I don't kick someone when they're down. What Justin said there is perfect. That's exactly what you do with an athlete in that situation.
Another thing I like to do is like let's say the workout today is going to be Fran or DT or something, and you're coming back from some kind of lull, whatever it is. I'll just change the workout up completely to tailor it to that individual athlete. Like if somebody walks in and they're looking like all gloom, and I'm like, "What's up?" And they're like, "Oh, I know I'm not going to PR this workout." First off, like selfishly, I'm like, that's really cool that that's where their mind's at.
Mm.
But then two, like I want to make sure that, they're driving and they get the most out of that
Mm.
workout for the day. So I'm like, hey, here's what we're gonna do. Instead of you doing regular DT, we're gonna do it with an axle bar, and you're only gonna have 95 pounds on there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna be 155, and you're gonna try to hang on to
Yeah.
it the whole time. Or if we're
Mm-hmm.
doing Fran, just hooking somebody up with some banded Fran, worst thing they'll
Mm-hmm.
ever experience.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Um, we had a girl recently who had injured a wrist doing something at work, and she was doing a lot of different, you know, single arm things, and one of the other coaches was talking to me about it, and he was like, "Hey, we're doing axle bar work tomorrow. I know that challenges the grip. Here's what I'm thinking." And we were talking about pinch blocks and
Mm-hmm.
holding different objects and really smoking the grip. And he was on the same page as me as well about these kind of things, which just goes to show, like, those individuals being invested and wanting to learn and wanting to grow. It's a testament to them, really, that they, stick it out and continue to do this. Um, but afterwards, he asked her, he was like, "Well, how was the workout?" And she's like, "My forearm is blown up right now." And then he turned around and asked somebody else, and they said, he was like, "Hey, how was the workout?" And they go, "My forearms are blown up." And he goes, "Well, look, you got the same workout." And she got really excited about it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, the athletes are able to train together, but a lot of people just don't have those tools in their back pocket. So,
Mm-hmm.
understanding the form and the function of the exercise, it doesn't have to look like every single CrossFit movement out there. There's more to life than, okay, there's a barbell clean, and then you give them a kettlebell or a dumbbell. Like, hey, what are we actually doing with the clean?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we training it? Is there anything else you can do besides mimicking it with the non-injured arm? What do we want to get out of that movement? Why does it interfere or maybe complement this other movement over here? What is the intent of those things? And I look at those things all the time. It's like, all right, this movement does this movement does that. I need to move this around. Sometimes I even change the workout up a little bit for the athlete if it's you know, uh, 15 calories, 7 bar muscle ups, and you have to do that, I don't know, every 3 minutes or something, right? I just made that up. For somebody who's working on their cardio, gymnastics, I'm probably going to leave them as is. If somebody is struggling with gymnastics, maybe I will front load that that muscle up portion of it and then go into the calorie bike, because I don't want them to try to develop a skill and to push reps in a workout when they're already tired. We need to continue to develop that skill. And depending on how
Mm-hmm.
you deliver that workout, you can still deliver it in a way that the skill and the training session extends beyond that block of time into the actual workout with the athlete, just front
Yeah.
loading some things.
Yeah. There's three key components to some of the things you were talking about, right? And I'm gonna start with kind of like one thing, like for example, when I first opened my CrossFit gym, I had people come in and like I had someone sign up like I'm switching gyms. I love my old gym, but I've been there for a year and a half trying to muscle up, and I've never been able to get a muscle up. I want to muscle up. Okay. So, I had at one time I had three level 10 gymnasts as instructors, right? I'm not a gymnastics coach. I got the best ones I could get.
Right.
And so they watch people. I'm like, okay, show my coach. I watch it and I'm like, okay, I can see where they lose speed, where they can't, maintain position. So I see that they're so far away from the muscle up. I'm like, okay. I told my coach, I want you to give them progressions, but not a full muscle up, give them things they can work on at their
Mm,
level. And then what I'm going to do is, like, I'll take an example. I had this lady that she kept trying to muscle up on her own, and she'd get up and her arms would go apart. And one time her arm went through the ring, and she got very lucky. She didn't do a lot of damage. And I was like, just stop doing that. Just stop.
she had the
She said, well, I
strength and not
practice
the
every day.
stability.
Yeah, you practice every day and you don't have the. So what I had her do is I had her get up on the rings and she'd do max time holds. Just hold the top. And then I would put band tension around the rings, pulling outwards to the rigs and to wanted to pull them apart, so she had to pull them in. Then I put band tension around her neck down to the ground. Then I had a kettlebell that would swing while she had to maintain that position. And then, I knew her back wasn't strong for triceps, so I did a lot of tricep work, specific, like in conius extension stuff right behind the elbow. I did a lot of like lat pullover work and stuff to help with that position. Did not touch a muscle up for 6 weeks. Did these little progressions that weren't a full muscle up, just stuff she could do in range. Then after this time period, she got stronger. We go, okay, get, jump up, jumps up. First time, boom, hits a muscle up, and then started linking them in that session. You know,
You have
and
to
that's all it is.
vary, yeah, you have to
Mm-hmm.
vary your options. You can't keep saying, all right, like, ring muscle up. Okay, then you
Mm-hmm.
just need to continue to develop your pulling strength. Well, maybe,
Correct.
in this situation, the rings, they're a frictionless plane. The individual couldn't stabilize long
Mm-hmm.
enough on it. You identified that, and that fixed the core
Correct.
issue. And if this individual that you're talking about were sitting here right now, they would tell you that that felt every bit of whatever they were supposed to get out of that workout. So
Hmm.
those non-traditional ways of going after these things,
Hmm.
and then increasing and making it even more harder than it's ever going to be. The example of you having bands pull the rings out and them having to pull them back in,
Hmm.
then having band tension or hanging
Yeah.
kettlebells or something. All those things, she's never going to do a muscle up with a kettlebell swinging between her. Maybe not never, but she might not never do that. We have guys
Hmm.
doing that, right?
Hmm. Yeah, right.
um, but that wasn't the intention to get her
Hmm.
strong for that. The intention was, hey, we found an issue that was a weakness. Now we're going to make this weakness a strength so that it's never a factor again.
Correct. And the cool thing about that too is someone, can you imagine every time you're in the gym, you try to muscle up for a year and a half? You'd be disappointed every workout for a year and a half. So you can imagine how happy she was when she could finally do one and do one well and link multiple ones together that day, right? In a 6 week time period, right? That we're not asking a ton of time. Because it was new stimulus and you react to new stimulus as fast, right? Some people like 6 weeks and they may not believe you on that. No, we didn't attack a strength for 6 weeks that would have gave us a minimal result. We attacked a weakness for 6 weeks that gave us a great result. But the thing too is for 6 weeks we took the psychological pressure off. She didn't have 6 weeks of workouts where she was disappointed. She didn't have another muscle up failed where she's going through the motion, doesn't even realize it because let me fail again, let me fail again, let me fail again. That's a miserable experience, man. I took the psychological stress because she had other things that she got to work on getting better at. And every time she got better, I'm like, see, you're getting closer to your muscle up. There we go, getting closer to your muscle up. And I kept giving her something to tie it to that meant something to her, right? And the problem that we had is like so at Westside, let's say you went to Westside and you hit a squat and you drop your chest. Okay. Well, you might find, you ask that person, what movement have you found that helps your squat the most? So they fix the problem. Good mornings help my squat the most. Okay. Well, some people will leave it at that. Some coaches will say, okay, we're going to run through every type of good morning we can think of and see which ones are the hardest and which ones are the easiest. Because let's say we have 3,000 pounds, three 1,000 pound squatters in the room, and they're all within 5-10 pounds of each other on every good morning, except for one variation. One's 80 pounds less than everybody else. Well, now I know that variation and variations like that is the one that that person needs the most to evolve. If it was a strong movement for them, that's not what they need. They need the one that's an outlier negatively on the low end.
Or even
Then
on
it
the
has to,
inverse, maybe it
yep,
doesn't even work at all, right?
yeah,
And this was a conversation I was having with one of my
mm-hmm,
athletes recently, a good friend of mine. He's like, "Yeah, I don't really feel X, Y, and Z on
mm-hmm,
this movement." And I was like, "So stop doing it."
mm-hmm,
Like this program isn't written in stone. Shane and I didn't chisel this
mm-hmm,
on the tablets with the
yeah,
commandments. If a movement, and this is something too, sometimes coaches are so wrapped up on getting an athlete to feel something in a certain
mm-hmm,
movement, and it's like, hey, is there another movement that we can do that's going to add value to this athlete, right? If they're not feeling the stretch on something, I don't know, let's say it's a good morning variation like you're talking about, right? Well, maybe we put them wide stance, have them sit on a box and have a safety squat bar on their back, and then have them do a good morning seated from that wide stance variation. Do you feel it now? Oh, you do. Okay, now we found a variation that works. This
mm-hmm,
is your variation
mm-hmm,
until I tell you otherwise. So when you see this movement come
yeah,
up, it doesn't mean that, it means this.
yep,
And
and
that's really simple to do, but if
correct.
you're not having that conversation with the athlete, and then the athlete again is just kind of internalizing some of those things. So some of this is on them as well.
Mm-hmm,
Like if that accessory movement was easy that day, or you weren't
mm-hmm,
getting value out of it, we're going to stop doing it. It's not doing
yeah,
its job. I don't want accessories to be easy. I want
mm-hmm.
you to want to throw up in the parking lot because you looked at the workout and you know those accessories are going to destroy you. It's
That's
80
a
20,
hundred.
and everybody's so focused on the 20. And sometimes the 20 that people look at in CrossFit is the Metcon. The Metcon
And I
training.
know some people. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, 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 good.
So I know some people will will follow something like say starting strength, which I don't know if I have enough time in my lifetime to pick that apart. Uh,
What is it? What is it?
Starting strength. It's I don't know why so many people follow it.
I don't even
It's
know what
really
it is.
bad.
So I don't follow it.
Anyway, one of the things, the guy who it's his thing that he came up with. He likes to call people names like, "Oh, you're weak, you're this, you're that," whatever words, because
Oh, we can
the
shit talk if that's
accessories.
what it takes to get people on the platform, dude.
No, no, he talks about people doing accessories, saying they're weak and
Oh, he's
weak-minded, and that's easy and stuff. I'm like, this guy's never worked out hard a day in his life. Because the thing is, like, he's like, if you're a man, you do more squats, and if you squatting 1 day isn't enough for you to get your numbers, then you squat 2 days, and then if that's not enough, you squat 3 days. And it's like, I'm gonna say, what happens in one of those days? You got seven of them.
well,
So
we know
what
what
happens if you don't
happens.
squat enough after seven?
Yeah,
Yeah, I know exactly what happens. But the thing is, like,
we're
he'll
gonna
make
get
fun of people.
results.
He'll try to make fun of people who do accessories because he wants them to follow his because he's so hardcore. Yeah, it takes a strong mind to get bad results over and over again and expect them to, and that's what you want. My problem with that is this: it is pretty simple. Got to work, train the strongest athletes on the planet, and every single one of them, they loved the main movements and they dreaded the accessories. They're like, oh, a heavy squat was nothing for someone who wants to power lift. A
Yeah,
heavy deadlift was nothing for somebody who wants to power lift.
that's the
A
fun
bench isn't
stuff.
anybody who wants to get stronger. We all want to do that. We're doing it. I walk in ring because I want to do that.
We're leading with dessert.
Yes. The accessories are the hardest thing. People are like, oh my God, those accessories are miserable. I would have rather did more deadlifts. And that's how I know the guys never had a hard workout. And that's how I know that they're not going anywhere because they don't do accessories and he makes fun of it. You wouldn't fucking make it in my gym.
You know,
I'm just telling you that right now.
if we flipped it and we put dessert in its proper place, and you had
Hmm.
to eat your main course meal, the accessories first,
Yeah.
you wouldn't want any fucking dessert. You wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to put a bar on your back to fucking max out. You would max out at 135. You wouldn't be able to squat.
So
I was
yeah, the
flat on that
accessories are
goal.
really hard. And here's what I'm going to tell you. This is the other thing too. Justin pointed out a good thing like, hey, here's your good morning. Here's the adjustment we make. You keep making these adjustments, right? And then it's like, okay, this is the good morning that works perfect for you. Because 99.99% of people have dysfunction somewhere in them. If you see someone who moves perfectly, that's a 0.0001% who's made it a life's work to move perfectly. Most athletes don't move perfectly either. They're just really good at hiding their dysfunction and they can compete with the dysfunction level they have and still win. Okay? So 99.99% of people have dysfunction. All right? And with that dysfunction, if you do main movements only, you will never address the dysfunction and never fix it. That's why you have to have accessory movements. Okay? It is impossible. If Justin deadlifts and I deadlift the same weight, and I have a hard time getting weight off the ground, and he gets weight off the ground easy but he has a hard time walking weight out. We're both different heights, built differently, have different backgrounds. Why would we both do the same movement to get better, just a deadlift? And if I have a hard time getting weight off the deadlift, I can make the top half of my deadlift twice as strong, but it'll never break the ground anyway. So what's it matter? I use accessories to take care of the weak link, to balance it out, to get rid of dysfunction, and to create balance. So when I said something like, say, drops your chest, and they found out later on if they fix your squat, I'm like, hey, what fix your squat? Oh, good morning, fix my squat. But here's what you do. You have a good morning that doesn't hit the area they expect. You make adjustments to having a good morning hit the area that you expect it to. Then once you find that, you say, okay, well, what makes my good mornings better? Arched around backs make my good mornings better, and hip bridges make my good mornings better. Okay, well, what makes you better at arched around back, and what makes you better at hip bridges? And you keep going down that rabbit hole until there's no movements left. You clear every ounce of dysfunction. And ultimately, you have to clear dysfunction from inside out. So you have to start with inside the joint, create a good, stable joint that has full function and the correct equal space around in the joint. And then you can work your way out from that, right? So that's why I said, I want to know, hey, I noticed your squat went up. What'd you do for that? Good mornings. Okay, now let's go down the rabbit hole, right? And I want to find every movement that makes the movement before it better and the movement before it better until I can't find any more of them.
And then stack those early in the accessories. right?
Hmm.
Like there's,
Yes.
we go through the painstaking process of mapping this thing out. We've got the year plan. Shane will go this way, then I'll come back this way, make sure that everything is dressed up the way it's supposed to be, multiple eyes on the thing. And then at the end of the day, if you're just doing it and you're reading from top to bottom, you're wasting your fucking time. Like
Hmm.
you're gonna get better to a degree, right?
Yeah.
But if you did your main lift and you felt something breaking down, and then you go to an accessory movement immediately after
Hmm.
that, that's not gonna help you fix the cause. You're wasting energy on something that you need to focus on.
Yeah.
There is a lot in there to choose from. Yes, we want you to get all that done because all those things are going to bring up your lift, but one of these
Hmm.
things is going to have more bang for your buck. And,
Correct.
that's where obviously the coach is educating their athletes, but athletes need to take some education on their own and be like, okay, what did
Hmm.
I feel? You can't just go under heavy ass weight and not be aware of what you're feeling. Those
Hmm.
people who are lifting tremendous weights are hyper aware of every single thing in their body, either A, being in the correct position, or B, being out of position, and they know to shut it down because you put 800 pounds on your back and you're just a little out of place, you're gonna get fucking killed.
Hmm.
Not a joke.
You know, you said something that's important, like having an athlete give feedback, and they're responsible for that feedback. But that goes back to something I said earlier in this conversation, which was our job is to create an educational facility where we educate our clients as we go. Because the higher educated they are, the more detail they can give us and better information they can give us. And then they also have better understanding of why we're doing something with them. Or when I give them a fix, like, oh, that makes so much sense. And now they're bought in. I need my athletes to believe in me. I'm telling you, I've watched this for my whole career. The more the athlete believes in you as a coach, the more you can get out of that athlete. And that's what they want. They came to you for a result. So create belief. That belief happens in many different ways, but one of those ways is educating somebody so they can see the roadmap that you've laid out ahead for them, and also so they can give you better information back so that you can fix stuff at a faster rate of speed in a shorter time period. You're not hunting for things and trying to figure things out. You're getting good direct feedback that allows you to make proper choices in the shortest time period possible. Remember, anything that we're doing, we don't do it minimal, we don't do it maximally, we do it optimally. We're looking for the optimal situation. We want to fix problems as fast as possible. We want to fortify you to the best possible positions we can. And for us to educate our clients does wonders for both of us.
Oh, for sure. And one thing that's really cool about your gym and my gym alike is, yeah, the coaches, they have buy-in to the program, but the athletes do as well. I
Hmm.
can I can be in a class and I'll just be observing, or maybe I'm coaching something, and then I hear, because we put them in groups usually as we go through these things, they're giving each other feedback.
Yep.
That's the
Yes.
culture in the
Hmm.
gym, right? Is it's a feedback culture. Our coaches are constantly getting feedback on the way that they're
Correct.
executing their classes. They're giving feedback to the members. The members are asking other members for feedback. Nobody in there wants to just aimlessly go. I mean, new people do, right? New people
Hmm.
don't understand the culture, but then after a while, when somebody's been there a little while, they don't want to do a rep without somebody looking at them.
Correct.
Th-
You know
They,
that.
they want to make sure that every single thing is perfect because maybe they're not as dialed in as, some of the other athletes at the very
Mm,
high levels. Pat, one of your lifters, that guy's violently explosive, and one of the things that stood out to the most to me is when his ability to brace and create
mhm,
tension underneath the bar.
mhm,
Um, I don't know how many 45s we had loaded on that bar that day, but we had the strong bands pulling down, and he came out of that and he was shaking, and you could hear the metal plates like clanking together. I'm on one side, somebody's on the other side, and I'm like, there's nothing I'm gonna fucking do if this goes wrong.
mhm,
I'm here for emotional support, you know?
mhm.
And he starts going down really slow, maintaining that tension. You just
Yeah.
hear it shaking the whole time because, like you talk about, the strongest contraction we can make is an isometric contraction. He
Mhm,
really knows how to lock and protect his spine with that much load on his back. He hits the box, pauses for a second, explodes up faster than I could do an air squat.
mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so just having, obviously he has a higher level of awareness, but
Hmm.
where members don't have that level of awareness, that ability to create that tension so that you
Hmm.
can resist that undue extension or hyperextension of the back under load, they have someone looking at them the whole time. And they might not know
Hmm.
what the exact thing is, but like, hey, I think your shoulders dropped a little bit on
Yep.
that one. And then they'll flag a coach down, and the coach will come over here and look at it a little bit, give them something to work on in between sets or whatever. And that's what it's all about. I don't, and you're the same way, right? We go around, we teach
Hmm.
seminars, we offer the programming. There's detailed coaches notes in there. There's videos that we shoot every single week, showing people how to do the movements and talking to them about the workout. We're not holding anything back. We're giving it out there freely and as much as possible. It's really on the athletes and the coaches to receive that information and then to put it to use so that they can get everything they want out of their profession and their workout.
So, if you think about this, like the programming is at the level produced 145 world records. Those are all time for powerlifting for my athletes. All 10 weight classes, every single lift, squat, bench, deadlift, deadlift conventional, deadlift sumo. We're all equipped. And that also is, we've had male games champions, female games champions, teams on podium, masters on podium, teens on podium. And the thing about it is, it all comes down. And we give you the same level. I give the same level. The program is the same. It was no different. Actually, there's more effort put into this programming because there was all these little things for different levels where I don't have to worry about the level when I have the highest level person in front of me. I just program for the highest level person. So we program for the highest level person and scale everything back, which is what you're supposed to do, and scale everything back, just like CrossFit, right? Set up for an Olympic athlete, but you can scale it for the 70-year-old to do it, correct? So we do the same exact thing because the principle does work, right? And we scale everything down to where we need it to be. But what Justin said was extremely important. He said in his gym that people will give feedback to the coaches. Now, here's the thing. Number one in the gym is knowledge. Number two is atmosphere before equipment. Equipment comes afterwards, but you got to create atmosphere. And the thing about it is, how can you expect your client to take criticism if, as a coach, you cannot take criticism? You are the example in the room of how someone is supposed to be. So when an athlete comes in my gym, I'm the example. I should be able to take criticism. I expect them to take criticism because that's all we're going to do. My job is to improve you for that hour that you're in front of me as much as I can, which means criticism after criticism after criticism. Am I delivering in a mean way? No. I'm delivering it in the nicest way I can, but I still have something we need to fix. So the thing is, the more I educate my client, the better feedback I get. Now they're included in their programming, they are included in it by giving feedback, and that creates a culture where we share stuff back and forth, and they find sharing information with me is valuable for them to do it. It means if they've never done it at a gym before, they did not find it valuable to share information, and they didn't have the same respect for the coach they had in front of them then because that coach wasn't helping enough for them to share information or try to learn themselves to have the best information possible for the coach. So be the example where you're educating yourself at the highest rate of speed. Read books, do programming like this. Like literally, what we charge for a gym to follow us programming,
Is
even if your
borderline criminal.
gym,
Yeah,
it
it's
is. Even if your gym didn't follow the programming, just as a coach to learn that every month would be worth the money. If I had this before I went to Westside Barbell, my God, it would have changed my trajectory because when I went to Westside, I had injuries, so I was more about the coaching than I was about the training there. And I would have avoided a lot of injuries. I wouldn't have got the injuries that I did because the injuries I did were repetitive problems from my training, from me not knowing what I was doing, right? And I was someone who read all the time about training. I've been reading since I was a little kid. I've been in the gym since I was 5 years old. I've been around this stuff my whole life, you know, and I still created these issues. And when I went to Westside, it's like every lift of yours is being watched by either Louis or a world record holder. Every single movement you're doing, every rep is getting critiqued by something. If there's a fault somewhere, it's going to get pointed out. And people are going to say something until it's gone. Like
right.
they're not going to let it go. But they would also expect that from you. If they had something, they'd want you to ride them until it was gone too. We did that because that's what you do. Like, how, it's funny, like how bad of a friend you have to be to lie to your friend. Like, you need to be able to tell your friend the truth, whether they
Well,
like
and
to hear it
that's
or
yeah.
not,
And when I went to your gym, and I was, working in with the guys as they were squatting, um, every single rep I got feedback from an athlete, and I'd never met them prior.
Mhm.
But they were like, "Hey, we're doing this thing together, and I give a shit that you don't kill yourself, and that you get, some
Mhm.
value out of this session, and we're gonna give you feedback whether you wanted it or not."
Mhm.
There wasn't any discussion of, "Hey, do you mind
Mhm.
if I give you some tips on your squat?" It was like, "No, motherfucker, you're gonna do this, and
Yep.
here's why." And
There's something you need to improve, and so I'm going to tell it to you because it'd be wrong of me not to tell you. Like that's how. Yeah. See, we have no ego. Like when we come in the door, it's like, okay, boom, here's what we're doing today. All of a sudden, all eyes. Everybody's looking at you trying to find a fault. They expect you to be successful, but they're trying to find a fault. I mean, they're not sitting there like they're not there to stroke your ego and afterwards go, "It was beautiful." Nobody's there to do that. If it's good, like good, and they walk away. There's no like patting your back. There's no excitement. If there's a problem, it's like, here's what's going wrong. I need you to do this to try to correct it. If you cannot correct it on the next one, then we have to talk about your accessories after that.
well, and that
And
culture of success too, that I seen at your gym, that I see at my gym,
mm,
it bleeds over into how others show up for those
mm,
athletes, right? So it's not
yeah,
just the athlete going to a meet or going to an event. It's their training partners are going there, and they're
mm,
as invested in their success as that other individual is that's out there competing. Why? Because it's only making them better, right?
yeah.
They
There's
train together, they suffer together, they're constantly giving each other feedback. There's a level of trust there that's uncommon to what's seen in gyms,
mm,
because every single day they know that that person's going to tell them the right thing,
yeah.
and it might be the thing you don't want to hear that day, but
Mm,
they might tell you, hey,
mm,
you need to just go ahead and fucking shut it down because you're lifting like shit right now.
mm. Yeah, there's quite a few things, man. Like, one, if you are going slow that day, then I know you don't have it. You're not going to hit a PR. So we're going to renegotiate your attempts to get the biggest weight we can because we know it's not going to be a PR. And that gets people asking questions. Two, if you're paying attention to detail, like when someone starts to break position down, it makes you a better spotter because you start to see a fault, you get closer and more intense
Just
because
because it slowed down doesn't mean you
it,
touched the bar, damn it.
exactly. But if I see like the knee start caving, I'm like, nope, that's a fault. And I'm like really paying attention to that fault because that's what's going to cause the accident, right? But if your clients don't pay attention to that because you never educate them to do that, they're not going to be great spotters. The other thing it does too is it creates a dialogue. He's created a dialogue between his coaches and his athletes and his clients. That means there's a more personal connection. They're likely to stay longer. They're likely to have a better connection with the coach. They're more likely to listen and not have an ego about it. And that dialogue itself is extremely worth it to keep people for long term and for those individuals to get the results they're actually looking for, right? The results they've always wanted, not the ones they used to dream about, but the ones they want, they can actually achieve now because we've created a dialogue. And then there's another thing too, is I like when our clients have buy-ins, when they have ability to raise within the hierarchy because they committed time and effort and care. So if I have an athlete who like helps pick stuff up around the gym and takes care of the gym and they see someone doing something wrong and they go over and help, that's great things. So what I tell people to do is so like in a CrossFit gym, I'd walk up to the whiteboard. If I have some potentially new people in the class, I'd say, look, so here's, we start at the whiteboard, we're going to explain the workouts. I'd point out what we're doing and I'd say to somebody, okay, so we're doing a safety squat bar box squat as a max today. Why would you use a safety squat bar or box, or a box squat? And I just point at somebody. And that person's like, I use a box squat because it's safer. Cool. Why is it safer? And they tell me. All right. And then we're going to do, and I name things, and I'll just point to people. Why do we do this? And then what my clients are going to do is like, oh my God, I got to pay attention. Well, then I don't have to repeat myself. It makes it easier for me to get through the whole workout. We have time now where those other coaches are like, man, I'm going buzzer to buzzer. You find fixes like this. So I'll have their attention because I might ask them a question. Okay. And then now they're paying attention. But what that means is every one of us, we have different phrases that are important to us. So, like if you talked about a safety squat bar, I can tell you a bunch of different ways why safety squat bar is a phenomenal asset and tool. So, if I have 20 different ways, most coaches are going to say the way that means the most to them. If you don't, what I should say is every time the safety squat bar is mentioned, you should change the importance of it every single time so people learn, or the way you word it, because we all learn in different ways. But if I ask people, it's going to be completely different verbiage and completely different reasons every single time, which now gets the point across even better to my athletes. And then what I do is I will tell people, okay, today we're doing safety squat bar box squat. So as a coach, I'm gonna watch, I'm gonna watch over you guys, and then in the class, these 5 people right here have been with me for a long time. They know exactly what I expect out of it. So when they're not squatting, because they're going to be in class too, they're also going to keep an eye on it. So if me or one of these 5 people tell you to make an adjustment, listen. And so I might have an athlete that they can teach the squat, but nothing else, because that's the only thing they can do perfect. And then when it's like, I can notice they can teach the bench now, I go, hey, and I'll tell them, now you're ready. If anybody needs help on bench, you can help with that too. But I didn't say deadlift yet, did I? I didn't say overhead press. When one of my clients knows a movement so well that they can teach it, I will let them know. Then that makes them start craving learning new movements to help the class more, which means they get better themselves. And one thing, my athlete's going to get more out of it. My other clients are going to get more out of it. They're bought in and happy and want to stay longer because they're part of a community now. But then also, if I need another coach down the road, I might just build my next one because they know what I need. It is a win-win for a gym all the way around, but most gyms do not make their gym an educational facility. They're afraid people are going to learn and leave. If you're afraid of that, make sure it can't happen. Learn at a faster rate than anybody else in the room.
Facts. Shane, we've been going at it for about an hour and 40 now, and I'm not even sure I know how to upload this thing. So probably just wrap it up there and
Good.
I'll let you know.
My end, it says 99% uploaded, so I will not close my screen until it says 100% uploaded, which should be just a seconds after we're done talking.
I do have a confession to make. I've been listening to some old Hootie and the Blowfish lately.
Yeah.
You'll notice I didn't say Darius Rucker because
Yeah.
he's always going to be Hootie.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, that's been the kick lately. Other than that,
Nice.
just training, doing the farm thing
Cool.
out here. Got a lot more free time on my hands now that I'm retired. So
Nice. How's it
yeah,
feel? Probably
weird.
weird, huh?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to go fishing and everybody's at work, so
Hmm.
there's that.
I, I do want to get into like the homestaying thing. Next year we're doing I want to whatever I do I'm gonna have like raised beds and start growing stuff, and then maybe the year after that introduce animals or something, and
Started shooting a
but
lot too. Archery brought back an old habit.
nice.
Been getting after that. So I just have a
I need to
3 minute
start
target,
shooting
like
archery again.
a deer sitting in the field at my
Hmm.
gym. You know how it's laid
Hmm.
out.
Yep.
And then we'll sit there and shoot at it. Sometimes I'll get the guys on assault bikes, get their heart rate up, see if they can still hit it, just for fun.
Cool. Yeah, I've been hit. All right. It's fun. Dude, we included archery in our class. I had no, not everybody, but we would do this lunchtime thing where people who did like to shoot, we just do a small group. Because like I think I might have told you before, we did Fran with archery. It was Fran and three bullseyes.
No.
So you have to do 21 three bullseyes, 15 three bullseyes, 9 three bullseyes. And so the thing about it is like obviously your heart's going and you're trying
I
not to
thought this was
move.
an original idea. Shit. All right, here we go.
Yeah, so like we literally do that in my class. Like it was one of my coaches, she liked to shoot archery. It was me and a couple other guys, and so we just started doing that, and we're putting up different workouts to throw the bows in. And it is rad because like the fan, it's a bitch, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
But like a bullseye, like hey, here's the thing. I gotta take mine down, but my bow is like 90, 95 pound draw. And so it's the thing is like when you're pulling it back, I don't want to do a fourth time. I gotta get all of them on that first three. I do not want to pull that string one
Your
more time
heart
than I need
rate's
to.
through the roof, so that float, the hardest part for a bow is that float. People can't get comfortable with
Yeah,
it, and
yeah.
their chest is just going up. Oh man, yeah, that's
And then when you're grabbing stuff, you want to squeeze. When you're holding the front of that, you have that
yes,
hand
yeah.
open, and you're not trying to squeeze. So it's like catching yourself not to have that habit, right? Which that's the dangerous stuff. That's when someone's dangerous, right? When they can manipulate, they know when to go tight, they know when to relax. That's someone who's dangerous, right? They just naturally create those habits. Like I like when you have someone pick up a gun and it's like they have a Glock, they handle it like a Glock. They run a 1911, they handle it differently because it's a 1911. So the way the downfalls there are different than like and they know when they just put something up them inherently the way they articulate is different because that needs it. And that's kind of cool. I've been Working on my shooting, but I've been adjusting my guns because, like, when I came out and shot rifle with you guys, I had an ML red dot. I didn't realize, and I found this out later because I'm like, man, like, if I'm like, just like, if I'm steady, like, if I'm not moving, I'm shooting extremely accurate. If I'm running on different angles, it's kind of weird. But I ran another gun with an Aim Point Pro, in that gun didn't matter. I shot everything awesome. It made me feel like I had a cheat code. And then I read an article that said that you can have up to a 7 MOA off with an MRO because the way it was designed, if you cheek weld it perfectly every time, but if you move your head around, that dot actually moves kind of weird.
Yeah.
And Aim Point doesn't do that. Or I think most of the top ones don't do that besides the MRO. So I've been getting guns dialed in, and that's making me feel a lot better because I'm doing better now.
Yeah, I got
Better
a
than I had a
cam for
bang,
my
right?
Glock recently. That's been a lot of fun because the tinnitus was getting really bad with shooting. So I
Hmm.
run subsonic rounds in it, and you don't even have to have ear pro with that thing. It's like really
Nice.
quiet. It's a
That's
lot of fun
cool.
shooting that, but that one stays, within an arm's
Mhm.
reach while I'm in the house, and
Yeah.
it's not my everyday carry, obviously. That
Yeah.
can on that thing is like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
cool.
it's if somebody comes in the middle of the night and I want to make sure I don't wake up, the family,
Right?
put a couple
That's
rounds
what, you
back in
know,
the backyard and call the cops.
it's just funny, right? Is people don't realize it's like, yeah, cool. Like, I think the best thing for us, I mean, there's a lot of advantage to a suppressor, right? But I think the best thing is if you have kids in the house, you can't, even if you secure the situation, if you blow someone's brains out and your little girl opens the door and sees someone's head blown off and brain matter all over the wall, they can't unsee that.
Yeah, and that
And you
shit
don't
takes a
know.
while to clean up. Like if anybody hasn't done
Yeah.
that, you know,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
teeth and shit
Because
just
then
go
it's like,
everywhere. So yeah,
yeah, kids
it's
can't
not as
unsee
simple as
it.
grab them up.
Yeah. Yeah. Kids can't unsee that. You can't. You don't know what the psychological ramifications are. So it'd be better if it was just kind of one of those things like you take someone out and tell your wife, I'm gonna throw a blanket over this person, go down there and make sure the kid doesn't leave the room. Until the body's removed and whatever. Yeah, I think it's smart to do that. It's like a lot of people are like, why would you need a suppressor? I'm like, why would you want your kids to see what happened?
Yeah, they can
They
be
might have
fast
to, but they
asleep,
might not have to. If they don't have to, then don't, right?
fast asleep, and they'll wake up, have pancakes in the morning like nothing happened.
Yeah, right.
It'll just be one part of the house that's extra clean.
No joke. No joke, right?
Oh, it's
So
funny.
that's
All right,
cool.
brother. Well, let's wrap it up there, and we'll hopefully do it
Cool.
soon.
Yeah, no problem, man. We can do this as often as you want if you want to do one a week or every other week or whatever you think, your
Yeah,
time or ours and whatever you think's optimal, we can
I'm on
do.
your time, man. I'm
Cool. I
pretty
think it did
wide
really good
open
for just off script, no script. I think it came around really good.
for sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
would you want to try it in a week?
yeah, let's do that.
Cool. Because if not, at least if we can get some, because no matter what, like whether hopefully it maybe gives you some stuff for little clips or whatever for social media on top of the actual this too.
For sure. I need to probably figure out how to trim that and go through there's going to be a learning curve.
Yeah, but there'll be a way to do it. It's not a problem,
Cool. All right, brother.
and
I got to go
so
get the kiddos. It is that
cool.
time.
All right, well, you have fun, man. You take it easy. Enjoy your retirement life as much as you can without being retired from all your bills. But
Already fucking driving Tina crazy, so might have to come up and stay up there for a week
cool,
or two. Get out
cool.
of her hair.
Yeah, well, like I said, if you bring out the running coach, sorry, blanking on his
Chris,
name.
yeah.
Yeah, man, he's come out. That'd be cool. Shoot some video or so if he's up for it.
Yeah, he's working out the details. We're seeing what kind of media support we can get, and then trying to line up Taylor's schedule as well for the whole thing.
Awesome.
All right, later, bro.
All right, man. You have a good one, buddy.
Likewise.
All right, see ya.